Greetings, this is Frosty Thundertrod, and today I'm here to talk about upcoming changes to the classes in Monsters and Memories. All the classes are getting some attention, but I'm going to focus on just the ones that I've been playing. So let's start off with my main, the Beastmaster. Alright, Archetype, Animal Taming, Primal Power, Roles, Melee DPS, Pet, Races, Deep Gnome, Goblin, Halfling, Human, Ogre, Troll, Wood Elf. Identity: the Beastmaster is a leather-armored melee brawler who fights without magic, instead choosing to have a bonded beast at their side. Where other classes channel supernatural forces, the Beastmaster draws on something raw, physical power, and a deep connection to the animal world. One animal fights alongside them as a persistent combat partner, while others aid them through their toolkit of bestial abilities. The Beastmaster is capable of strengthening both themselves and their companions, emphasizing the bond they share with their reliance on one another. Animal-inspired stances shift how the Beastmaster fights, but they aren't magical. They invoke instinct of someone who's spent as much time of their life among animals that they've started to become one. Wields two-handed weapons or double-fisted claws. Okay, so I'm thinking maybe that they're restricting the Beastmaster's weapon selection, because currently the Beastmasters can use everything except for the lances. Maintains one persistent animal companion that fights alongside them in melee combat. Okay. Companions must be healed, cared for, and revived if died in combat. So far, these two haven't changed. Using a taming mechanic to acquire companions that is distinct from summoning. Okay, that's the same. Temporary calls upon hawks, rats, and other creatures in specific abilities. In specific abilities. I would think that's for specific abilities. Like maybe your hawk is, an outdoor scout, your rat's a stealth indoor scout. Has abilities that can buff them, their companions, and their party members. Has bestial themed stances for different combat, damage, defense, and utility modes, speed, stealth, resistance. Has survivalist abilities inducing self and companion heals. What's changing? The Beastmaster is leaving behind his roots as a shaman hybrid. The spirit world connection and shamanistic abilities and swarm pets are going away entirely, which is a shame. I kind of like my bear swarm. What replaces them is a more grounded identity as a primal melee fighter, whose power comes from physical mastery and a bond with their animals, not magical tradition. Alright, so it's getting more of two-handed weapons and double-fisted claws. Has weapon options. Yeah, when you create a Beastmaster, you get this claw-type weapon that counts as one-hand slashing. I've never seen another claw weapon. But yeah, you start with a claw weapon. Don't really like them very much unless your Wolverine claw weapons are very ineffective. Animal-themed abilities and contextual creatures throughout the toolkit. Okay, so like I said, this might be, a hawk to scout open areas, a rat to sneak around inside, dungeons and the like. I don't know, maybe some sort of other abilities that you might have. Maybe a monkey that can, climb up, that can, shimmy through a tight spot and use their hands to open a door. Beastmaster and companions specific survival abilities. That's more like a statement of aspiration than an actual statement of fact or ability. Less shared abilities with the shaman, traditional hybrid role, instead becoming a youth class, and less swarm pet mechanics. Well, I actually do like the hybridization of classes. Maybe they'll bring that back in an expansion or something. Because quite often I've, played a class and I thought, this is pretty cool, but if I could do this as a melee character, that would be great. Or if I could do this as a range character, that would be great. So I kind of like hybriding. Um, but I see what they're trying to do. They're basically trying to get rid of the all the crossover classes and make each class more distinct and stand on their own. All right. Now, my second favorite class, the one I've played, uh, this is basically my primary alt ranger. Archetype, Wilderness Veteran, melee plus range DPS utility, races, dwarf, goblin, halfling, human, ogre, wood elf. Identity. The ranger is a chain-wearing martial class whose identity is rooted in their wild. Their skills have been honed by a lifetime spent living off the land, not by channeling nature as a magical force like a druid. What seems like magic to others is accumulated fieldcraft, old wisdom, remembered paths, and skills refined through years of necessity. In combat, they have more fluidity between blade and bow, depending on the situation demands. They are capable of holding the line in a pinch. Outside of combat, however, is where the ranger's full value emerges. Their masters of travel, moving themselves, their group across terrain with ease. Their affinity with the land runs deepest in outdoor zones where they can track down what others would miss. They move through dangerous territory unseen and live off the land unabated. Between fights, practical knowledge replaces spells. Wounds are dressed, ailments treated, downtime cut short through their fieldcraft. Ranger skills turn a simple camp into something more. A group recovers better. The wilderness provides in ways that won't for anyone else. Defining traits, proficient with bow and dual wielding blades. This is one of the things I really like about the ranger is that it is a true skirmisher. It can fight at range and up close, and it does both pretty well. Capable as an off-tank with limited aggro control. Okay. Yeah, not really, but can track nearby creatures. That's kind of a classic ranger thing, so I'm all for it. Master snares and movement impairing abilities. Yeah, once again, another ranger type thing. Has travel and escape abilities that benefit their party outdoors. Can draw food and unique supplies from the natural environment. Can enhance campfires to provide a suite of beneficial rest effects for the group. Offers out of combat healing and curing through natural remedies. Strongest in outdoor zones. Yeah, what I primarily use my ranger for is this is my primary harvesting character. If I'm just going to go out and do some harvesting, I am definitely going out as my ranger. While I enjoy the ranger, for its own kit in combat, I really, really enjoy my ranger for going out and harvesting. The ranger is moving away from its druidic inspirations and towards a distinct identity as a wilderness veteran. The core remains familiar sword, bow, and a deep knowledge of the natural world, but the toolkit is shifting to match that theme. Generic magic utility and elemental abilities are going away, replaced with tools that feel physical rather than conjured. The fieldcraft side of this class is getting more room. Campfire enhancements and natural remedy healing are new additions that give the ranger an out-of-combat utility role. Travel and escape abilities are expanded. Reinforced mastery of outdoor movement has a class identity rather than a footnote. Snares and movement impairing effects are also becoming genuine areas of depth rather than incidental tools. Yeah. So yeah, I'm I think this will work. I kind of enjoy the theming of it. And like I said, this is something that I know I'm going to play solo for the vast majority of the time because when I'm out harvesting, the last thing I need to do is be, dragging people around to watch me pound rocks. All right. More distinct identity from Druid and other hybrid classes. Honestly, other than the small heal, I don't really use most of the druidic abilities that the ranger has, so I think this is a good move. Depth and snares and moving and pairing effects. Well, how many ways can you snare or slow something down? Campfire enhancement, that natural remedy, healing, and out-of-combat utilities. I have to see how this is implemented, but this might be an interesting thing to do. If you can actually get your party to sit down and gather around a fire instead of, be tweaking all around the zone. Less shared druid abilities. Less shared magic utility and elemental theme abilities. Okay. Yeah, I'm not against it, so sounds fairly decent. Alright. So now, next up, as my healer alt, I chose the Shaman. Archetype Spirit Caller. Healer Magic DPS support. Races Deep Gnome, Goblin, Human, Ogre, Troll, Wood Elf. Identity. The Shaman draws power from the spirit realm, ancestors, ancient forces, and the wisdom of those who passed on. Its reverent relationship, distinct from the cleric's divine law and druid's communion with the living world. There are where others command or petition their power source, the shaman listens, channels, and gives it form. In a group, the shaman's most defining contribution is enhancement. Powerful physical buffs make companions stronger, faster, and more durable. Their heals offer sustained recovery rather than short-lived bursts. On the other side of the battlefield, devastating debuffs. Powerful physical buffs make companions stronger, faster, and more durable. Their heals offer sustained recovery rather than short-lived bursts. On the other side of the battlefield, devastating debuffs sap the enemy's strength, blood durability to threaten the party. A skilled shaman doesn't merely support, they reshape in the terms of every fight. The spirit realm blends into everything they do. Ancestral forces take visible forms in their spells, not with companions or pets, but with vivid expressions of the power they've channeled. Give the shaman's magic a presence that others casters lacked. Okay. It still sounds like this is going to remain my healer alt. Specializes in spiritual magic built around physical buffs, debuffs, and healing over time, and damage over time. Now, this is what I'm wondering is, with all these buffs it has, if it might be better off just whacking people with a stick instead, casting magic. Has the strongest physical buff suite in the roster, capable of enhancing strength, speed, and endurance. Has a signature melee slow and stat drain debuffs. Healing is built around sustained recovery. Can cannibalize themselves as a self-sustaining mana ability. Damage is focused on persistent dots with limited direct damage options. Manifest Spirit Animals has expressions of ancestral force in their spells, but not as pets. Okay, so like you cast Bear Strength, you might see a Spirit Bear has a casting particle effect. Has utilities tied to spiritual influence, including party escape and recovery tools. What's changing? The shaman's remaining a strong healer, buffer, and debuffer with genuine damage potential. The update about the thematic focus and separation from the classes they drifted too close to. The biggest shift in lore and ability theming. Nature and cold damage are going away, replaced with expressions of the spirit realm. Generic magic utility is being cut and replaced with abilities that feel distinctly ancestral. The damage lineup is being focused more heavily on dots, and new spiritual utilities are being added with a focus around party escape and recovery. Yeah, so this sounds very useful. Healing is also getting a pass to sharpen the distinction between shaman, cleric, and druid. Each healer should feel like a different tool for a different situation. For the shaman, that means leaning into their self-sustaining character. More of Spirit Realm lore and the ability theming around that toolkit. Dot focus in the damage lineup. Utilities tied to spiritual influence, including escape and recovery. Distinction as a healer from the cleric and druid. Less nature and cold themes. less generic magic utility, less animal transformations and pets, overlapping with druid utility. Okay. And the last class I play is my tank alt, the Shadow Knight. Archetype, anti-hero monster hunter. Now this is a huge difference right from the get-go. Roles, tank, melee, DPS. Races, deep gnome, deep elf, goblin, human, ogre, troll. Identity. The Shadow Knight is a plate armor tank who wields the power of darkness not in the service of evil but against it. Where the paladin draws strength from devotion to a faith, the Shadow Knight has learned that fighting monsters often requires becoming something like one. The relentless, morally gray hunters and a career spent hunting monsters leaves marks. The Shadow Knight studies what they fight, adapting techniques and methods from a diverse range of enemies. They're formidable combatants in any encounter, but against monsters they know they wield an invaluable edge. In fights that would exhaust a more conventional tank, the Shadow Knight is sustained through life force steals and ability drains to replenish the strength at the expense of their foes. They're also built for aggression as much as they are for endurance. That shapes every choice they make in the front lines. Defining trait: wears plate armor, and prefers two-handed weapons, but is capable of using a shield if needed. Has higher damage output than the paladin, but less pure mitigation than the fighter. Has life and strength drains, which can be distributed to themselves or to the party. Casts fast, short-range abilities that are suitable for tanking under pressure. Can collect monster hunting abilities from past encounters. Distantly thematic from the Necromancer. No pets, no death magic, and the undead are just another monster to him. What's changing? The Shadow Knights are stepping away from necromancy as its driving lore and towards monster hunting anti-hero fantasy. The sinister tone stays, the undead trappings don't. The biggest addition to the monster is the monster lore system. Collecting abilities learned from specific monsters give the Shadow Knight a customization layer that rewards experience and planning. Drains and transfers remain central, but the ability suite around them is getting more depth and scaling along the full level range. The class is also gaining some fast casting short range abilities. As other knight classes, it retains the role as a high damage tank with a dark edge, but the dedicated pet and ability sharing with the necromancer are being cut. More monster hunting anti-hero identity and lore, drains, transfers, and debilitating effects, collectible abilities from monster encounters, depth upgrades and scaling across level ranges, fast casting short range abilities, less necromantic lore and strictly undead theming, dedicated pets, and generic magic utility. I really, really like this change because I chose to play the Shadow Knight because it is a drain tank, which means it looks like they're keeping that theme going, but they're getting rid of the thing that I really did not like, and that's its overall tie to necromancy. I do not like undead or anything residing to it in my playstyle. So it's kind of it's a personal bugaboo of me as a player. I don't like playing anything that's pro undead. In fact, many of my favorite characters are very specifically anti-undead, undead hunters and the like. So that's the only 4 classes I'm really going to talk about because these are the 4 that I know the best, since they're the ones that I've been playing here on the PvP server. Thank you very much for watching.